So this is another policy hack session, and this time on a topic that is, very exciting for me, and will be exciting for all of you also, because when I very early in the career I got connected with internet, and since then I have been, somehow or the other associated with internet, and I know the tough and the rough times when there was no internet in country, and there are a lot of firsts that I am associated with internet. So that is the perspective I would bring in from the maybe the history of internet. So when I sometimes talk, it is very exciting, this announcement of PM WANI that we are going to cover in this policy hack session, and a short discussion on how PM WANI will be helping the country and further proliferation of internet mainly. And we have 4 guests here. Mr. Arish Sharma, who has been is ex-chairman of TRI. WANI itself happened in this time. So I would start with Mr. Arish Sharma and then go to Pramod. Pramod has also been associated with this particular initiative that has come up, from my spirit side, that we were working in the background. Siddharth is there, who will talk about it. It's a short discussion, so I would not individually introduce. And Shubhendu is there from Wi-Fi Dabba, and Mr. Ajay Data, who has been, I have been associated with him from a long time back. I don't know whether he was first or not, but I think he was first private ISP in Jaipur, at least. I don't know about North India, that I won't recall. So to start with, I would like to start, Mr. Arish Sharma. How did this idea came up, and how it unfolded? Maybe a little bit of background and history you can tell about WANI.
Well, thanks, Sudhir, and good morning to all of you, my friends. All of us are known to each other except Ajay. Ajay, I think I'm meeting for the first time, but the rest of us have been fellow travelers at some point in time or the other. So let me just start, where it all started. I joined the TRAI in the August of 2015. And then, of course, after that, we discussed with Nandan. I was, as you know, CEO of Aadhaar UIDAI, and had worked with him till 2013, 2009 to 2013. So as soon as, we kind of, I joined, then we had a long discussion on things which could be done in TRAI in the telecom space. And after a few months, actually, we discussed an idea that how can we create a grid of Wi-Fi hotspots. And ultimately this UPI, actually UPI and Aadhaar, the whole architecture which Pramod had created, this architecture, could be leveraged to ensure that we are able to unbundle the last mile connectivity and create a interoperable Wi-Fi network throughout the country. So that was the broad idea, and we discussed. Then I sent a mail to him, and this was April of 2016. In fact, a few days back, me, Pramod, Nandan, in fact, sent a mail saying that this is the first email exchange which we had on the concept, and today it's a reality. So once we have that broad idea, then I discussed with Pramod, and we said, why can't we unbundle, the authentication, the authorization, and also the accounting, that the payment system, and we create a digital kind of situation, digital part, and that can ensure a very seamless sale of the data from the retail point. In fact, at that same time, I had gone to Banaras, where BSNL had done a Wi-Fi, Wi-Fi sale on River Ganges in the Ghats of Banaras. And I, studied that thing. It was a dual purpose religious yatra, as also the, sort of looking into the whole aspect. And I realized that what these guys were doing was basically they were distributing chits to the people whosoever was interested, and that chit had the username and some password similar to the chits which you get when you check into the Air India lounge or any other lounge in the airlines. They tell you their internal Wi-Fi password and username is this. So I got that, and then they were distributing physically, and it had 30 minutes was free, and thereafter it was paid. Now, nobody paid for it. Actually, it was only 30 minutes free people used, and thereafter they could probably go back and get another chit. So this is how it was happening. And once they converted it, and by the time I had gone, they had converted it into a paid system also. And they realized that the number of users who were using that facility became more or less 1% of what they were earlier. So they said a payment doesn't work. And then I asked them, what is the cost of distribution of these chits, to the people? And they said, "Na, bahut zyada hai. It's very difficult to, do that." So when we came to the conclusion that if we can kind of create a technology layer around this, so that each hotspot could actually, sort of give the marketing and other job to somebody could take that by creating a technology architecture, then it will become an easy process. That somehow evolved into this whole Wani architecture, where we discussed a number of times, and the whole idea was that if we could somehow create similar to what UPI has done, if we could just unbundle this from the ISPs, this whole three things, then it will become a very marketable and very, very seamless digital part, which will be very easy to implement, because the kirana shop fellows or whosoever we want to have, they will not have such kind of expertise. So then we came up with the idea of PDO aggregator, application providers, and of course the Wi-Fi providers, so to say, which we call PDOs, public data office, similar to what the PCOs of yesteryear. So one is PCO, PDO, and then PDO required some kind of person who could aggregate them and provide them the facility of digital marketing of their bandwidth. So that's how this whole concept evolved. The one policy issue which was there was basically resale of bandwidth. So because a retailer, when I got a fixed line in my house, I can't sell it to anybody. But if the guest comes, I can always provide them the password and they can use it. Similar to what, and the hotels are doing it without any kind of permission or license. This is, so we said, if they are doing it, why can't we create such situation where each kirana shop fellow, each pan shop fellow who has got a fixed line connection from long back and which is not using now, we can create a small local Wi-Fi hotspots, and that can and provide. So that is how the whole architecture emerged. Of course, Pramod is an expert in that architect, the whole unbundling and his Lego theory that you can solve problem into components and then combine them through APIs. So that's how it all worked. We gave the idea of a central registry. Now what happened when we get that, then we had a formal consultation, and that was the process. That is a process in GRAI. We had finally, we even conducted, and of course, Subha is here, Wi-Fi Dabba, and we conducted all these pilots also, because we said, look, this may be a theoretically possible situation, but then there will be practical aspects of it. So let's find out whether it is workable or not. So as an exception, TRAI does consultation papers only. TRAI is not really a development agency. TRAI is a regulator. But then we took on the responsibility of being that development role also. And then we said, let's have this experiment as to how this could be done. And all these people, application providers, PDO aggregators, PDO, we did the experiment pilots in Bangalore, pilots in Noida, couple of places, I'm forgetting the names, maybe 3-4 places. And I think there were 12 parties, application providers, aggregators, who came, and they had their, and we checked the interoperability. So everything was checked, and the consultation was done. Everybody agreed. Of course, telcos somehow felt that it is a threat to them, because people will, then they will not use their mobile services. But we told them that, look, your silent retail points, silent endpoints will become your resellers. So you should be happy, because you will get resellers without paying anything. You know, when you appoint resellers, you appoint agents, and you pay them some commission. Nothing here. It's free fund. They are becoming resellers. So I think you should be happy. Your data, you know, sort of, and your spectrum will be offloaded. Some data will be offloaded, and this is how it should happen. Somehow they did not agree. So we gave the recommendations on 9th of March 2017, exactly. So 3 years and 9 months back. And what happened was that it again, you know, got gathered dust in DOT. I had presentations after presentations to minister, to the cabinet secretary, to the Niti Aayog, to everybody, even to the honorable prime minister. And prime minister was very happy. He actually fixed 31st July 2018 as the date for inauguration of this facility. So you know that also people just kept on stonewalling. The COAI gave the to DOT in writing saying that we will create 1 million Wi-Fi hotspot by 30th of September 2018. Now not even one tenth of that was created. So then, you know, it continued to linger, and of course TSPs cannot create such Wi-Fi hotspot, because for that they will have to appoint somebody who will sell that, and they will have to pay that fellow. It may not be viable at all, because Wi-Fi has a very limited area. So there are a lot of constraints in this, and the only model which can work is a very low cost model, where the guy who puts up the thing just, you know, takes care of the router and telephone and the bijli. That's about all. The rest of the thing are taken care digitally, electronically. So that's the only model it can work. And this is the beauty of it, is all it is scalable, it is interoperable, and it works. So now I'm very happy that after lots and lots of what I call the woodpecker, you know, strategy, where you keep on telling the guys, do it. And I mean, of course, as Gita says, don't worry about the fruits, but keep on doing your job. So we just keep on doing the woodpacking business, and then, you know, somehow it has fructified, and I think I'm the happiest person in that. And I want to compliment and congratulate both, you know, the providers, all the participants who is here, and of course Pramod and everybody who has actually made it happen. And I can tell you, this is going to be as revolutionary as UPI has been to the payment system, because similar architecture of UPI, similar minimal architecture of Aadhaar, which can plug into anything, those architectural principles of India stack, they have all been applied here, and I'm sure it is going to become successful, provided it is implemented. Because if there was a reluctance in the Department of Telecom at the time of for the 4 years, I'm not very sure whether I mean, we need to have somebody who pushes this whole concept to its ultimate conclusion. Thank you, Sudhir.
Thank you, sir. So going forward, I mean, you said it all. I mean, it requires somebody to push the implementation. Democratization will happen on the ground, and the effect that it will create, I mean, the ripples that will come into the economy will be definitely huge. So, Pramod, can you enlighten us, you know, on the remaining technical architecture part of it, and how is it going to help? How can we quickly create, you know, Wi-Fi spots in the country?
Yeah, pleasure to be here. Thank you, Sudhir. Again, always pleasure to see the friends on screen, not physically these days, but on screen. Yeah, I think Dr. Sharma actually gave the perfect historical as a background to Wani. But I think it's inevitable. We have to do many reasons. Even as a consumer, I'm one of those people who have had tough time because of the buildings around me, and I can never get my mobile reception right. And I've been calling, I don't want to name the telco, I've sort of called the telco, and they don't have money, they don't have the last mile enhancer, booster, or whatever they have to install. They'll say, it's a very asset heavy. If telco has to do all that physical investment till the last wire in your house, it's just not scalable. And given in parallel, we have also seen BharatNet and so on. Right? We have a fiber across the country we are laying, but nobody knows at the end what to do. because you're laying this fiber, but after that the real cost sets in when the last mile connectivity happens, because maintenance, power, tripping, problems, and that needs an entrepreneurial model. It can't be a cost model, and this is just we are expecting telco to say somehow you make it happen. No use whipping telcos to say put 1 million connection. They can't. Maybe Reliance can do a few, but really it's very hard. It's very asset heavy. So given this background, it was very appropriate, and given the fact that we have done PCOs in the yesteryear, and all of us in the university probably remember walking down after 9 p.m. for 1/4 of the STD cost, cheap cost to call our parents. And we have, that if that didn't exist, there was no phone. What it was, phone was, the density was 7 people or whatever out of 100, 7 connections out of 100, and mobile took all that thing away. So the connectivity, and with given the COVID year, and we have seen real hardship, and especially when a lot of us work in the education, we have seen children suddenly thrown into, and parents thrown into a situation where without connectivity, your education is just abruptly stopped. And people like us don't realize it because our children are privileged. We are highly privileged. You don't realize at all, right? And that privilege is what is making us survive, not the resilience of the country. Resilience of the infrastructure, what we should be investing, not because privileged people can survive, right? And we have seen parents struggling to buy phone, first connection, because that girl can attend the classroom and so on. We have to make connectivity a human right, and that has to be for 1 billion people available without question. But the good thing we have done is that we have laid the fiber, we have laid the mobile networks, we have laid everything, but we still haven't closed the last mile cost and sustainable model for the last mile. And school connectivity, we are seeing schools or the local libraries, local schools just don't have connect. Nobody is filling that gap. And if government has to keep on buying Wi-Fi, it'll never sustain. It'll just gather dust, or get resold, or get misused, because it's government property. It's like transport bus or something. You can throw stones at it, right? It's nobody's property. But it's important that it becomes people's property, and local entrepreneur managing that well. So this thinking was very clear in our head, saying that we have to unbundle. And the best part was that UPI, we started UPI also in 2014. And we were second year into UPI when we had this conversation, 2016 April, as he was saying. So we already realized that the idea of unbundling, e-sign, when Dr. Sharma was MeitY secretary, we did e-sign and DigiLocker in 2014, and 2013 we started actually. So first work, email trail again, everything starts with an email. But we sort of had that mental model that if we can break down the parts of it, maybe we can create self-sustaining interested parties who actually come together in various, who does the long haul, who does the last mile, who does the apps for people who are on the consumer app, who does the KYC, who does the payment, because without all that thing, you can't do it. And we have also seen cyber cafes really working well. Actually, India had a fantastic, that early internet actually bootstrapped with cyber cafe, including us going to cyber cafe, right? A lot of us, and very quickly then we gravitated back to home, but cyber cafes lasted. But the two things happen. One, the resale policy issue always comes in the way. Second, the KYC issue keeps coming, because you also have to worry about national threat, misuse of any network, DOT has to worry about it, everybody has to worry about it. So we did not want to dilute KYC. We did not want to dilute any potential verification or security around this, but we still wanted to unbundle. So I think that was the problem statement given to me, when he called. Okay, so think about this, how to solve it. And then, August 2016, after a couple of months, I sent the first paper to him saying that here is my thinking around it. And then we started. And the idea was this. Idea was that if we can create a set of app providers are like maybe a Paytm, PhonePe, Google app, any of these apps who are already on the consumer's phone. Think of that way. 100 million, 200 million consumers already use these applications, can we make them focus on the consumer acquisition side? And if consumer can do a one-time mobile KYC, which is all you need, by the way, a mobile number OTP verification in the airport or in the hotel, that's what you do, right? So you do one-time KYC. Can that KYC token, KYC authenticated token of who I am, can be used to connect into a PDO network, right? On the Wi-Fi network, instead of Wi-Fi redoing KYC all over again for me, right? In a separate sense. So we unbundled that part. So we said KYC is taken care and we can get these apps to do. Then the second thing we said is that if we can create a PDO aggregator model where, and Shubhendu and so on, we're already starting to demonstrate that a model like that could be pretty interestingly workable, especially in India. And you can talk about that, how Wi-Fi in a box can be actually given and to the local businessman, and all the local businessman is doing is configuring that. So that's what we call the PDO and the PDO aggregator. And if you can unbundle these two, very good. But to unbundle, you need interoperability. So that was the specification we wrote. So we wrote the specification that allowed any consumer app that does WANI app, as we called it, a KYC app, to discover nearby WANI hotspots, WANI compliant hotspots, discover them, connect with them, authenticate with that, all in an interoperable mode, browse the packages because it may not be free, maybe 20 minutes free or 1 rupee. That's a very interesting model like these guys do with Shubhendu can talk about. Very interesting model can be was sachetized Wi-Fi. An auto rickshaw driver coming in, taking a 2 rupee or whatever sachet, half an hour, doing his WhatsApp or whatever, and getting back on the auto, right, while drinking tea. I think that's exactly what Shubhendu does, by the way. He, beautiful stories he has. And that interesting model has to happen interoperably. And we also had UPI. So we said if coupons or payment, if payment is a solved problem in India, we should be able to use any of that payment and combinatorially use the existing payment system also into WANI. So WANI interoperated with KYC, interoperated with payment, and interoperated between app and the provider. And that allowed a very, very interesting model. And it was, again, it's one of those things nobody seemed to be thinking in the world because probably they don't need it. And we are the only guys, maybe we are freaks, so it doesn't matter. We seem to be in India thinking about all these ideas, but these ideas are powerful to unbundle the two sides of the network, provider side of the network and consumer side of the network, without diluting KYC, without diluting security, without diluting trust in the whole thing. That's why we established registries, we established digital signatures, the API, everything was worked out and the pilot was done. And the pilot demonstrated it can actually work. So it was really left to the policymakers in Delhi to say, let's just do it. We don't see any reason, but it's sort of the tech side of, this is the Bangalore side of Dr. Sharma, by the way. It's not the Delhi side of Dr. Sharma. So it's the Bangalore telling, sort of how to do tech, and then Delhi has to make up. I think it's wonderful to see it coming back again because we still haven't solved it. We still have not solved connectivity to every home. And to connectivity to every home, it cannot be only mobile or only Wi-Fi. The diversity of India necessitates a multiple options given to the people. It can be Wi-Fi, it can be 4G, it can be something else. All kinds of options must be given. And Wi-Fi, and with the given BharatNet, we should just, at least BSNL should jump into it, saying that all the endpoints just, give it a PDO aggregator. Beautiful model. It can just exponentially change the world for us. Yeah, so we're back to you, and the fantastic stories others can talk about that.
Yeah, thank you, Pramod. I mean, we are short of time. We don't have too much time, but I think this recording and panel discussion, once we post it as a blog, is really going to help people how powerful this idea is. And I remember Eric Smith quote, where he said, "Internet will be everywhere. You won't realize it. It will be so much." Yeah. But I think we were yet to see that in India. And we are seeing the problems. I mean, we see problems on ground. especially the MSME sector, which we want to really empower with digital, to actually become efficient and contribute to the economy. They have a real problem. The software product industry can tell you about it. Many people in the software product industry, you take a product to them, they will tell you, no, we don't need something which works on the internet, because when people go in field, there is no internet. And so, I mean, those kind of problems are going to be solved once Wani comes into. So, Siddharth, can I bring in you very shortly, if you know any full form of abbreviation Wani, and how did it come up when it was being discussed at iSpirit?
Yeah, so, sorry, go ahead, Sudeep.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so maybe I talk a bit about the pilot. I think Arya Sharma sir as well as Pramod have outlined both the policy and technical components of it. And once Pramod put together the architecture for WANI, which is a wireless access network interface, it was important that we put together a pilot that tests this out. And we said a couple of perspectives should be tested out. One, whether this unbundling really works, the unbundling of KYC services, payment services, the app provider, what the consumer interacts with, and the network provider, the router provider on the back end. Once unbundled, whether this would work in an interoperable manner. So you're going to have multiple providers come together, different companies, different vendors in different locations, and all of them have to work together to facilitate a successful transaction, which is the user connecting to the internet through his consumer app. Then through the pilot, it lasted roughly about, I think, 3 to 6 months approximately. And TRAI had also published a draft set of technical specifications and hosted a draft version of the registry. And so the pilot created an impetus for players to build out against those specifications and give their feedback in terms of components of those specs that could be improved, and also what would be the subsequent business model around this unbundled ecosystem that gets built out. So therefore the pilot, and it did go on to be successful. TRAI, and for the folks on the call can take a look at it, TRAI published a detailed report on the back of the pilot, both in terms of operational feedback and technical feedback. But that's kind of the way it was then. The architecture that Pramod put together was brought to life in a real world setting, and people like Shubhendu and many others, Wi-Fi and a range of Paytm and all of these companies participated in this initiative.
Okay. Thank you, Sid. Subindu, I think we would like to understand from you, you were involved in the pilot. And I think the important part is that it gets implemented, executed on ground through a lot of, multiples of entrepreneur, in India, because such a large country. So tell us about, your experience, and how do you think that this can be picked up as a commerce, as a business by, young people aspiring to become entrepreneur countryside entrepreneur actually.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sudhi, for having me today here. Like, great to be talking to you all. So our story is pretty interesting. It happened by chance that I met people at TRAI, and all of this started back in 2016 when we first launched this. So a quick background: like, I'd been running a software company for 10 years now, and this was a time when we were trying to play with Wi-Fi, a hardware product for the first time in 2016. So we were of no clue like how the policies are. I never had interacted with TRA or even heard about them, that such a body exists in India. Sorry about that, but that was the reality, right? I'd never been in this government, policy side of things. So 2016, when we first rolled out as a side project using Raspberry Pis, we converted them into routers, and the use case came up was, can we create a Wi-Fi grid across cities? So right outside our office in Indranagar, there was a chai shop where every day auto guys, the blue collar work people would come and have their tea and stuff, and would share one single mobile device and watch videos on that. So when we inquired, why do you do on that one single screen? Why don't you have your own mobile over here? So the use case came up was to save the cost of internet data. That was very expensive. This was pre the largest telco that we have today, pre those days, right? So that was interesting for us to, understand what these people are browsing for, what they are spending the time on internet for, right? So we thought, okay, let's do a side project and see whether we can install a Wi-Fi router and draw a internet cable from our office right across the street, plug it in, and can people will pay for it and use it, right? So we did that for 2 locations right outside our office, and within the first week we had this usage where people started, instead of taking a eclair in the exchange, asking for our tokens, right, from the shopkeeper. So that was like an interesting learning for us. This was now getting replaced where 7 रुपए की चाय ली, 3 रुपए का internet खरीद लिया उसके साथ. That was the use case that popped up, and this was eye-opening for us. Like, so far building, for big enterprises software we were doing, this was like totally unheard of for us as well, right? So we started working more seriously. From 2 shops we went to 5 shops, and by end of the month we were able to break even on the cost of a bandwidth that was going in for these connections, right? So this was very promising. So when this happened, we were like, okay, we need to take it up seriously, and we applied to a couple of incubators and we got through, and that's when we took it up towards the end of 2016 as a full-time project. This was the time, for the first time, when our problem started coming up, right? All of a sudden, when we were now expanding to 20 locations in Indranagar, all of a sudden no ISP was willing to give us connection, because they have learned that we were reselling the internet. Now we were taking their retail lines and use them in these commercial locations to further resell. That is when I learned about the first problem, and we can't resell internet in India. So that is where I had to go down and start studying this thick document called ISP license, unified license, and that was my first encounter with a public policy document. That led me to reach out to TRAI, and that's how the whole I landed up with Dr. Pramod and folks at TRAI. So from there, that journey, so I'll tell you what were the core issues that we were facing. So first, as I said, reselling was not allowed. So nobody was willing to give us connection if we don't have our own license. The next was, if we take the license, we have to now absorb a cost of 8% AGR. I don't know why that was there for ISPs today still, but that was there. Third was, if you're becoming an ISP on record, the kind of paperwork you have to maintain, the additional cost you have to, for legal enforcement agencies, it has to be done. No wrong in that, but unnecessarily you're creating one more layer, because our ISP who's giving me line is already maintaining that infrastructure and data, right? Why again have that, one more layer of same thing, repetitive AGR and stuff, right? These 3 core problems were the major reason why I went to TRA and asked them, can this be resolved, right? And I think it was destiny that I did not know by this time that TRA was already working on a policy document to solve this. So I think it was destiny that I met them, and all of a sudden in 2017 early, things started moving on. So this really helped us. This policy document is now going to be, I would say, if implemented well and people take it seriously, as Dr. Sharma said, is going to be the UPI movement in the telecom industry. This has the potential to change the face of internet connectivity in India. There are major reasons behind that, right? First of all, first reason for us is it becomes super easy for anybody to become a reseller now. There is no legal obligation. The biggest pain point for these small shopkeepers are they were hesitant till now that what happens कल को अगर कोई पुलिस वाला आके मेरे को पकड़ेगा कि मेरी शॉप से किसी ने illegal use किया. This policy document answers those questions. The second point, which is again, there is unbundling done now. They are not dependent on one particular ISP to take this bandwidth from. They can go with anybody, and everybody will be now legally obliged to provide them bandwidth, and they can't just stay away from saying that you don't have a license, I will not give you bandwidth. So that that thing is taken care of. The third thing, if you talk about the rural India, right, this policy has the potential to create multiple job opportunities. Small entrepreneurs, the CSC model that exists in our country can really proliferate now, right? Anybody who's having an existing business establishment can now start selling digital services because they have a internet connectivity now with them, right? Things like these, like selling insurance, banking, services, or having healthcare, education, all these are eventually going to be bundled through an internet connection, and you can't really do that over 4G, right? Yes, you can run, but the experience is not good for your consumers. You need a fixed line connection which can be reliable, stable, and high speed, right? So all of these things packaged together, this policy answers all those questions and makes life simple for companies like ours to really go after this market and build a Wi-Fi grid, not just for cities, for entire country maybe. Yeah. So that's where we can head towards. Yeah.
Thank you, Shubhendu. I mean, it was a pleasure listening to you. And I think while I was listening to you, I mean, same problems when we started internet early in the country, same kind of problems. I don't know how many people know in the tri-city of Gurgaon, Delhi and Noida, we had a problem, there is a ridge in between Delhi and how to take internet to rest of the Gurgaon and the remaining part of the Delhi. And it was a big problem. There was no terrestrial network because same thing, DOT was there and it was very difficult to take a last mile. So I don't know, I can share very small experience. So we had to plant a repeater station for our radio on at JNU library, which is the highest point in this, Delhi NCR. And it was 6-7 floors. So one very interesting piece is because it was imported equipment, the custom officer who came had to wait for 2 hours because there was no power and you had to climb 6-7 floors. Right? So, I mean, it was, and if anything went wrong, we had to actually climb sometimes 6-7 floors. Our team had to climb there and do that. But I mean, same challenges, different, times and different people blocking, the proliferation of internet or technology reaching the people, right? But the experience a little bit matches. But I think it is time that it is taken to the people now, right? And Ajay Data, who was the first private ISP in Rajasthan at least, I know I worked with him and we enabled his ISP whereas we were not supposed to be doing that, but we enabled him. We did few things out of the policy framework, and we had to really had a fight with the DOT people for a tower to be erected on his building, right? So Ajay can bring in a perspective where, because he's connected with the people in the for example, the largest state Rajasthan, he knows how a young entrepreneur can be groomed to pick up this idea and how will this pick up as a commerce and as a business. Ajay, tell us something through your ideas.
Thank you, Sudhirji. When Sudhirji contacted me yesterday night to discuss this thing about with the, let me just confess, it's a very historic and meeting which we are having here. R.S. Sharma Pramod, who have been pillar of this entire digital ecosystem of this country, is the region. This country has Aadhaar and UPI, and we are the Aadhaar means the base on which we can stand, and that is very, very powerfully required. So thank you for being in our live, Sharmaji and Pramod here, and giving all of us this opportunity. This is 1999, Sharmaji. You will be surprised that when I took 2 MB bandwidth from VSNL in Delhi, there was no gateway in Jaipur. 256 kbps bandwidth I took from Sudhirji through STPI, 256 kbps. And it was lakhs of rupees here. And I waited for 4 hours with a 90 lakh rupees DD and 18 lakh rupees more to BSNL to buy 2 MB lease line. You are coming from there. I know that. I was the 6th largest ISP, Sharmaji. I never had an opportunity to personally meet you, but my team has met you, and I have followed you extensively in this. So I know you very, very well. And we have not just met personally. That's unfortunate part. But this is a very exciting journey. I am still a Class A ISP, and we have not given up. We have seen all ups and downs from the modem of 33.6 to the 100 Mbps lines now going on. We have, so I was hearing authentication, authorization, and accounting. So we built our first AAA radius of our own when we started building this thing, and we still use that, and we believe that how data things can be managed much more better. I am sure, sir, what you have done, I have a very limited knowledge about WANI. Let me just confess that. But whatever I have read and heard in last 3 days, since the TV guys invited me to speak about this, I had nothing negative in my mind. And I had absolute positive feeling about this entire ecosystem. And actually, I was very vocal, as our PM says, vocal for local. I was just very vocal about that how this thing can revolutionize this country in many, many ways. Just imagine that we have only few people who can have access to the very fast internet. The time has gone when 33.6 or 1 MB and 2 MB will work for you. We have moved beyond. We need to have the internet of a streamable quality where the streams can happen. And actually, this is the benchmark. HD stream can be delivered on any device. That should be our benchmark, whatever it takes, right? Whatever is required. And if we can achieve that, then rest of the data applications will work. The video conferencing, I am struggling. And let me share the education experience, Pramod. When the government of India announced the call for local Indian solution, we stood up and made this. You can see the video meet background in the back. This is what we created, and we are empowering thousands of students every day. And the problem we face, you rightly notified, the problem we face, the students who are in the villages do not have good internet and they're struggling. So we started our video conferencing platform with a HD quality, and we ourselves were forced to reduce the quality every day because we cannot have the bandwidth at the last mile. It is not about the solution is not getting delivered the right thing, because the bottleneck is on data availability. And I think with this WANI, if our WANI jo bol rahe hain, sab everything gets correct and it goes in a right sense, I think we have a very fantastic journey. So I have 2 points to say to Sharmaji and Pramod, to both of you. We have probably the legal issues to be dealt with ISPs in this. And we need to set this license correct, maybe an amendment, maybe something to support that WANI infrastructure. No matter we have a policy, but we have the people on the ground to take care of follow the ISP license and control that in a way. And you can't still resell. Hotels are still a gray area. They have been a gray area since then. So, and we all know that reselling is still not allowed. It's still you are caught. You are not required. You are not supposed to do that. And of course, what Shubh said about AGR, this is a huge issue. And let me tell you, Sharmaji, after you have gone, people have gone behind ISPs to charge AGR even on the routers, even on the modems, even on the computer sales, which ISPs have done. Government have gone behind them, which is not under the license, which is not the part of the license activity. ISPs are under that threat already. So you do not want to create another thing. I think the most important thing here is we are creating essentially millions of ISPs here, right? Essentially, this is what we are doing. So if we have some very free flow of information, free flow of empowerment policy, I think that will be, and that should not be very complicated to understand and subject to interpretations at the ground. It is very, very critical if we do this. UPI was very successful because only 20, 30 people or 50 people are involved in this. All rich people or powerful people are dealing with the customer side. They can understand the licenses. Here you are going to the chaiwala. Here you are going to the person who has never read in English. How he's going to understand this policy document? So another point which I have spoke in my TV is that we need to bring in the language plane to this. So we have to have a very definite language play. We cannot depend on English at all. Every interface has to be mandatorily on that language first, on that region. If it is a Maharashtra, it is Marathi. If it is Karnataka, it is Kannada. It is simple, right? In Hindi, primary is this, secondary is English. That is how we need to think Bharat. And this entire thing is part of things, so nobody gets cheated. Another thing is about the usage liability of IP addresses. Who ultimately is responsible? So probably law enforcement agencies need to be also awakened in that. Policy is fine, but will police go that way? And what kind of data will be required from that chaiwala? Otherwise, chaiwala will be shut down by the police wala itself. So we may be doing good, but we may be creating a huge risk for them if we do not bring them on board right now, that you cannot touch them. They have to be probably there is a board which somebody has to put in each shop, that these are the things which you are not supposed to do and he just show to the legal authority and he is done with that. So probably a certification kind of thing is required, which is legally required, and some authority issues that. If this framework has not been thought of, so Pramod, probably this is also a piece and a puzzle need to be solved, which is not a critical puzzle, but which is very important puzzle to be solved as the way forward. And the last is SLA. How do we ensure that people are not really behind money? People are really behind the big purpose. Money will play an important role for sure, but the purpose becomes a very critical component in this for this country to empower everybody and provide them to the last mile. I think we have gone long journey. I can't say enough thank you words to all of you involved, Shobh, Siddharth, for this participating into this, creating this ecosystem for all of us and give us the trials and said that this is workable. Thank you very much for this opportunity to me to talk to you. Thank you, Sudhir. Over to you.
Thank you, Ajay. Thank you very much. You have given a totally different perspective and the real problems on ground, policy problems. But I think it is very exciting that the policy has come, which was most important, right? I know, in every policy, when execution, implementation, there are a lot of bottlenecks to be solved, and we will be solving them. And I think it'll be good to involve people like you while we further work on, unblocking any of the issues which exist in the policy. But the important thing is for people like Shubhendu, a lot of Shubhendus to come in the country, which Ajay Data, people like Ajay Data, Class A ISPs have to enable, right? So that is most important thing for us to work for the country and probably create an ecosystem quickly. I mean, if there are some success stories created, that will inspire others to come up and work. So that is most important, which I feel. And hopefully, we will see, this is a much required thing for country to become a 5 trillion or whatever 10 trillion economy in the future. That's what I believe. True digital India can only happen when everybody is digitally enabled. So I will close with this note, and we will be, thank you everybody. Thank you.
Sudhir, can I make a couple of points which these, Ajay and Shubhendu have made? So just to kind of remove some of their doubts.
Sure, sir. Please.
Okay. So one is that I'll be very brief. One is that the Prime Minister himself had tweeted about it, and he has called it historic. And he says that it will revolutionize the tech world and significantly improved Wi-Fi availability across the length and breadth of India. And I must tell you that in my 5 years, and also before that, for 1 year as Secretary IT, I've had the good fortune of interacting with the Honorable Prime Minister on a one-to-one basis many times, meetings. And I have found him extremely, he understands technology. I mean, I don't think there is any politician who understands technology as much as he does, and he knows how to use it. I mean, basically understanding technology, not in a programming sense, but in the sense of, how technology can be deployed for the empowerment of people. So that's, he's absolutely, and he has been convinced about this, and actually after getting it passed through the cabinet, he has tweeted this. Couple of things which people have not realized about this model. One is, as of now, we just have 7% data coming out of the fixed line connectivity. 93% comes from mobile. Now, basically, this is happening because putting the fixed line, whether it is a fiber or anything, is a very costly proposition in today's world. You have right of ways and you have other kinds of things. On the other hand, you have fixed line, as Pramod rightly said, at BharatNet, we have laid the fiber, and we have also laid, BSNL itself has 600,000 kilometers of fiber lying in the country. Now that fiber is largely unused. It is being used for their own departmental work of, connecting the towers and, sort of creating the intercity networks. But essentially this fiber is not used at the consumer end. This particular thing will actually create a pull factor of creating those wired lines. Because if there is a demand of, at some place of a Wi-Fi, and that you will require a high bandwidth, high throughput, and that high throughput will not come from the 4G phones, but it will come through a fiber kind of thing, and that will become viable. So actually it will increase the viability, and BSNL can actually monetize it. They don't have to lay the last mile fiber. They can actually have some contract with a third party saying that, "Bhai, aap yahan se wahan fiber lagaiye, aur aap uska, we will have a revenue share arrangement," or whatever arrangement they can have. So that's one part. Secondly, the resale of the bandwidth is actually legal, legitimate. Why is it legitimate and legal, and why it's the policy part? is that the sale of bandwidth has been made a pass-through in the AGR computation. So basically, Ajay would have already paid, let's say, if you have bought it from TSP, TSP would have paid 8%. If you have not bought it from TSP, you would have paid 8%. So what is happening is that the retailer, now the guy who's getting a retailer is getting the data. He doesn't have to pay anything because it has already been paid for. So therefore, it is not some kind of, you can't have a arbitrage kind of thing in this. Basically, it's a very clear situation that the bandwidth has been paid for, AGR on that has been paid for once, then no additional AGR payment is required, or any value add that may be done on the bandwidth. Somebody might say that this person bought a bandwidth of 100 rupees and he sold it at 150. So now 50 rupees with dedo paisa, which actually he will pay 50 rupees, but he will pay entertainment tax, he'll pay all kinds of taxes, GST or whatever. So the bandwidth is a pass-through. That is one part. So this policy change is absolutely timely, and it does not actually create any kind of disturbances in the ecosystem, because that principle has already been established. Third is, I think that especially in today's pandemic situation, these content delivery networks, the day they work, the content can also be delivered at the edge, at the hotspot. It's very easy to connect a small storage device on the Wi-Fi dabba, which can actually cache the content, and it's absolutely legitimate and legal to cache the content and distribute it without actually accessing the internet. So normally this is what is going to be very useful for children in the rural areas, who will actually have their books on the edge, who will have all the content delivered, and then they can use it without really going to the internet, and so it will be a great thing which will happen. Telcos don't see it as a model, ISPs don't see it as a win-win, but I think it will be a win-win, because now their silent endpoints will become their resellers, and therefore they will be the beneficiary. That's what I feel. Also, the telcos will be able to offload some of the the congestion in their networks, and that is happening in European countries. Everywhere it is happening. So I mean, it's a good thing for them, because it will improve the quality of service. So this offloading of bandwidth is something which they will realize. And now that we have allowed, the TRAI has allowed that you can use anybody's Wi-Fi network to actually make a call or do the thing at the last mile. So suppose I don't have a connectivity at home and I come here and I find a good Wi-Fi connectivity from some other provider, I can use that to connect to the, make a phone call. So that liberalization has already been done. And that can be very, very important here, especially in buildings or in complexes or in villages also. So that's another part. And of course, you are very right that Ajay is very right that we have to ensure that the police walas don't come and say, "Bhai, kya ho raha hai? कौन कर रहा है? तुम्हारा आदमी बैठ के pornography देख रहा है. देखो तो पकड़ो इसको भी पकड़ो, तुमको भी पकड़ो." This is absolutely important. And what is happening is that because of this reason, the chaiwala, the responsibility of maintaining who is using what is not now kept to the chaiwala. It's actually the PDO aggregator, which essentially is the guy who is keeping track of, ye iska USSD tha, what do you call it? That US whatever that point uska jo address hai.
SSID. SSID, sir.
SSID, sorry, USSD. SSID क्या है? इस SSID से किसने access किया, वो सब किया. That accounting will have to be kept by the PDOA. So PDO is a poor fellow who is just having a telephone, who is having a router, and he's connected the router and he's ensuring that the power is there in the router. Absolutely. The rest of the stuff is being done. So I think that part, you are very right. It has to be told, because we have seen, we as administrators throughout life, we have seen how good intentioned policies are actually misused, abused, and how people are harassed in the name of the so-called policies. And the policies just supposed to make life of the people easier. Somehow, they end up making life of the people difficult. So I think that part is again an education part, something which rightly, I think the board will be a good idea to put that as per the responsibilities. These are my responsibility, and I have nothing else responsibility. For other responsibility, you contact this guy. This is how it should happen. So I think it's very important that we implement this well, because many times great policy decisions, great policy stuff just remains an exciting policy concept, but never gets implemented. So I think implementation is certainly the key. I'm sure that the other day, the telecom secretary called me And he said, sir, we will need your guidance. And I said, I will be more than happy to provide any help in this regard, though I'm not a part of the government anymore. But this is something which we are very passionate about. We feel, all of us feel, Nandan Nilekani, me, Pramod, all these, Siddharth, everybody who's involved in this, we feel that we have now the responsibility to create, such products and such policies, help in doing that, which can benefit our country. So I just wanted to make this observation.
Very well, sir. And before Sudhirji says, 10 seconds only I will take. Reselling, when I was referring to, was not to AGR, sir. My reselling was related to the right to resell by the PDO at that time, because there is an ISP and there is a PDO. That was the reference only, nothing more than that. And as an ISP, I am absolutely thrilled. I am telling you, I am not an edge, whether I like it or not. I am thrilled to participate and actively deliver that thing. I am a class ISP, and I can tell you, Sharmaji, I am probably the only ISP and an entrepreneur who is into this industry last 20 years from the day one and still alive into this industry. This is also a very important thing. Almost everybody has closed at that. I love this empowerment thing. So I am telling you, I am willing to participate in your vision and mission and happy to contribute. If Shuk needs some support from the licensing perspective, very happy to do so. No problem in that. And I think, thank you for agreeing to that board and the certificate. If Pramod can design that and everybody can just download it and registration and put it on the board, have anywhere you like to, I think you are done with that. With that, somebody's signature is there, PM की photo है उसके ऊपर, सबका नाम है, सारा एक डिजाइन बन जाएगा, वो लगा के खुश भी होगा और कोई उसको रोकेगा भी नहीं. Thank you very much. So Sudhir ji.
Yeah, thank you, Ajay. I think we will take R.S. Sharmaji's guidance and work with the TRA and DOT further to, see that everything goes well with this policy. So with this note, I think I would like to close the discussion now and thank everybody who participated in it. We need to keep it short so that people can watch it, really full length, right, and get benefited. So that's where it is. So thank you, sir, for being part of the panel and guiding us. Thank you, Pramod, Siddharth, Shubhendu. We'll talk to you more as we go further. Ajay, you are anyway there. You can anyway give call. So thanks, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.